Can you imagine if your vet would tell you, I'm sorry, I can't help your suffering animal. This is out of the question, you have to take it to the other side of the world? What would you say? You would scream. All the animal lovers would scream. Well, in my situation, I feel like screaming too. And that's the 21st century, and it's a shame. Shame on all those politicians, those religious organizations. People should have no say-so in private lives. None at all.
There are two general types of voluntary euthanasia. In active voluntary euthanasia, the physician takes premeditated steps to curtail the patient in accordance with the wishes of the patient. People are often familiar with the term physician-assisted suicide. The alternative is passive voluntary euthanasia, which also respects the wishes of the patient. The physician lets the patient pass away by refraining from intervening in the patient's treatment. There are several camps in favor or opposed to the legalization of voluntary euthanasia. According to a survey by the Pew Research Center in 2005, 84% of all surveyed persons approved of laws that let patients decide whether or not they are kept alive through medical treatment. Since 1983, Harris Interactive has reported a 17% increase in support for a law allowing doctors to comply with the wishes of a patient who asks to have his life ended.
Medical advancements in the 1960s raised the question of how long and under what circumstances life should be sustained by medical means. Later, in 1973, the American Hospital Association recognizes the right of patients to refuse treatment. By the end of 1976, California approved the nation's first law giving terminally ill the right to authorize withdrawal of life-sustaining medical treatment when death is imminent. 8 other states passed similar laws within the year. Perhaps the most famous in the movement in favor of euthanasia is the pathologist Jack Kevorkian. He helped nearly 140 people end their lives. Jack Kevorkian was sentenced on April 14, 1999 to 10 to 25 years in prison. Today, voluntary euthanasia, also known as physician-assisted suicide, is legal in 4 U.S. states: Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Vermont.
Several arguments for and against voluntary euthanasia have developed over the years. Those against voluntary euthanasia have argued that suicide is unacceptable even for the ill. Some people also believe that it is incompatible with the healing goals of medicine, if not unnecessary with proper medical care. There could be unexpected tolls for people other than the patient as well. Requests for death may be simply induced by poor medical care or for unrecognized psychological needs. The practice may also be damaging to physicians by desensitizing them to human needs. Additionally, many people fear that legislation legalizing voluntary euthanasia would be a slippery slope to indiscriminate killing of the ill, weak, and disabled. Conversely, the rationale for supporting the legalization of voluntary euthanasia focuses on protecting individuals who no longer want to suffer lingering, painful deaths. Voluntary assisted suicide respects patient autonomy. It does so by protecting against physician paternalism and unwanted treatment that may not assuage their suffering, but instead turn it into a futile and costly measure.
The current views on voluntary euthanasia are compelling. We thought that it might be best to talk to an expert on the situation to better understand the conflict and the shift in society. Dr. Shea, Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies and Outreach of the College of Health and Human Development, provided an insight from the health policy perspective. Currently, if someone commits suicide, health insurance does not compensate the family. This situation may change if physician-assisted suicide were legalized. According to Dr. Shea, you would need to have a conversation with the life insurance industry because people can obviously take advantage of it. This is what we call a moral hazard. If people are going to be allowed to do that, we have to have some changes in policy first. From a company's point of view, they could be at risk of not collecting enough premiums, which would be a financial problem. With that said, there can also be a financial burden on families to ensure palliative and end-of-life care.
I believe I'm in favor, yes.
I think I am, actually. Haven't given it too much thought, but I think I am.
Is there legalized euthanasia?
I actually am not. I don't think that that's a great idea. I'm not too knowledgeable on it, but I just don't really quite agree with that. Yeah.
And
I'm not quite sure. I think that it has its role, so I think that it should be legal, but there should be maybe some stipulations on how it's used and what information people are told before using it.
is there a difference?
Of course not. Coming from a future doctor, I just feel like it's completely inhumane. Why should we be killing people when they have a chance? You know all those miracle stories you hear about? After 20 years, these brain-dead people just wake up. So no, I'm not in favor.
I've made up my mind. Don't need to think it over. If I'm wrong, I am right. Don't need to look no further. This ain't last. I know this is life. But if I tell the